All right, welcome in, everyone. Ready for another deep dive.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Today, we're going to be looking at President Nelson's welcome message
Okay.
from the April 2021 General Conference.
Yeah.
And this was a really interesting time, right? I mean, we're right in the thick of the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
The Salt Lake Temple is undergoing this massive renovation.
Huge. Yep.
So there's a lot going on.
Lots of context.
Yeah, lots of context.
Okay.
So, right off the bat, I was struck by how welcoming President Nelson's tone is. Like he's, just sitting down having a conversation with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he really uses that tone to kind of connect with members all around the world,
Yeah.
acknowledging all the challenges that everyone's facing.
Right.
And emphasizing that, the church is global.
Yeah, and that we're all in this together.
Exactly.
But then he drops this line that that made me kind of stop and think. He calls the past year one for the record books.
Yeah, that one stood out to me too.
And I'm like, wait a minute, we're in the middle of a global pandemic.
Right.
That's not usually what you think of when you hear record-breaking.
No, not exactly a celebratory time.
Right, exactly.
But I think he's kind of challenging us to reframe our thinking a little. What records did we set personally during that time?
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't positive achievements necessarily.
Right.
But maybe about resilience.
Oh.
About how we adapted, how we learned to cope in the face of just unprecedented challenges.
That's a good point. And he talks about how even amidst all this difficulty, he's seen God working through the church. He even quotes, from the Doctrine and Covenants, I will show you that I am able to do mine own work.
Oh, that's a powerful one. I mean, that's a direct quote, right?
Yeah.
And he's using it to really express this belief in divine intervention,
Right.
that God is guiding the church.
And he's not just saying it.
Right.
He's saying he's seen it.
Yeah, he talks about seeing it firsthand, even with tear-brimmed eyes.
What do you think he's referring to there?
Well, I mean, we can only speculate.
Yeah.
But, it makes you wonder what kind of experiences he's drawing on
Yeah.
to speak with that kind of conviction.
Right. And this leads into another big theme in the talk, hastening the work.
Yes, absolutely.
I know for members of the church, this is a phrase that's become really significant.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain kind of what that means and why it's so important?
Sure. Hastening the work, it refers to the urgency of preparing the world
Okay.
for the second coming of Christ.
Okay.
It's about working with more intensity, more focus to share the gospel, strengthen families,
Okay.
build up communities of faith.
Yeah.
And President Nelson has been emphasizing this a lot lately,
Yeah.
especially with all the craziness in the world.
Even with all this talk about these huge global events,
Yeah.
he always brings it back to the individual, right?
Yeah.
He talks about how important personal testimonies are.
Yeah.
The role of the home in nurturing faith. And he even draws this parallel between
Yes.
the temple renovation and our own spiritual growth.
It's a great analogy.
Yeah, he talks about removing old debris.
Right. Just like the Salt Lake Temple needed a major renovation to remove outdated stuff.
Okay.
He's saying we need to look at our own lives and figure out what's holding us back spiritually.
So it's like repentance, but maybe framed a little differently.
Yeah, I think so. It's not about, dwelling on the past or feeling guilty.
Yeah.
It's more about recognizing where we can improve
Okay.
and become more like Christ.
What would be some examples of old debris that people might need to remove from their lives?
It could be anything, really, that's hindering our progress,
Yeah.
Maybe it's a bad habit we just can't shake. Maybe it's a grudge we're holding on to.
Yeah.
Or even just negative thoughts
Okay.
that are keeping us from feeling joy.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because he ties all of this together with the idea of joy, right?
It does.
It's not about being perfect. It's about progressing,
Right.
finding happiness in the journey.
It's a process, not a destination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this journey, it's not just about individual salvation either, right?
Right. He talks about the gathering of Israel,
Yeah.
which is this huge concept
Yeah.
about gathering God's people,
Right.
preparing the world for the second coming.
So it's kind of a twofold gathering.
Yeah, you could say that. It's both spiritual
Yeah.
and it can be physical too. People coming together to create a place where righteousness can flourish.
Wow. So it's like building Zion.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really interesting.
It's a deep concept,
Yeah, it is.
but ultimately it's about unity
Okay.
and creating a better world.
I like that. I have to say, overall, I thought this was a really inspiring message.
Mm-hmm.
It acknowledged the tough times.
Definitely.
but it also gave a sense of hope.
For sure. And a call to action, too.
Yeah, he really encouraged us to, take a look at ourselves, figure out how we can grow.
Exactly. So I guess the question for everyone listening is,
Yeah.
how does this idea of removing old debris resonate with you?
That is a good question.
What are some steps you can take to hasten the work in your own life?
Yeah.
How can you contribute to this gathering of Israel?
Really great questions to think about. Well, we've reached the end of another deep dive.
It goes by fast.
It really does. But we hope you found this one insightful.
Yeah, and maybe even a little challenging.
Yeah, in a good way, though. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.